welcome. Okay, we will call the October meeting of the Ridgway Planning Commission to order. Clerk, take the roll, please.
Commissioner Emilson,
Here.
Lisk,
Here.
Montague, here, Nelson, here, Mayor Pro Tem Meyer,
Here.
Mayor Clark,
Here.
and Chairperson Kenwright.
Here, thank you. First item, public hearing. The application is for a final plat. The location is Town of Ridgway, Block 20, lots 16 through 18. The address is 377 North Laura Street. The zone is historic residential HR. Applicant Beth Lakin, owner Beth Lakin. TJ.
Good evening, planning commissioners. As mentioned, this is an application for a subdivision plat. Upon review of the application, town staff and the consultants realized that there might be a slight discrepancy in, well, not really a discrepancy, but some issue that we're trying to work through on the sewer service. And we just didn't have enough time to address it prior to this evening's meeting. So we talked to the applicant and she was amenable to this as well. And so what we're requesting this evening is that the Planning Commission continue this item to the next Planning Commission meeting to give the applicant and staff adequate time to resolve the issue with the sewer line. So be happy to answer any questions you might have. I don't believe that the applicant is there this evening, but she might be in the audience.
Make a motion if you're ready. Question.
We need to open the public
We
hearing.
need to open.
Oh,
Yeah. Okay, this is a public hearing, so if anyone has any comments to make on the application, just step to the podium, state your name, and give your address. Or anybody online. Okay, hearing nothing, closing public comment. John?
Yeah, I would move that we continue at the applicant's request, that we continue the request for subdivision of lot 16, 17, 18, lot 20, Town of Ridgway.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion, we have a second, Thomas. Go ahead and poll the commission.
Okay, taking the poll. Commissioner Emilson,
Aye.
Lisk,
Aye.
Montague,
Aye.
Nelson, aye, Mayor Pro Tem Meyer,
Aye.
Mayor Clark,
Aye.
and Chairperson Kenwright.
Aye. Thank you. Second item, the application is preliminary plat, location Town of Ridgway, block 28, lots 16 through 20. The address 283 North Cora Street. The zone is historic residential HR. The applicant Matt McIsaac, owner Matt McIsaac. TJ. We got TJ first.
Excellent. So this one's going to be a little bit longer than that last one. So as you mentioned, Chair, what we have in front of the commission is a subdivision, a preliminary plat and a PUD in front of the commission this evening. The applicant wishes to subdivide lots 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20 of block 28 to establish PUD zoning on the property, to make certain variations to town standards to allow the proposed development pattern and land uses on this property. The sketch plan was approved for this project on July 28th, 2020. I do want to point out that the staff report, I believe, said July 28th, 2021, and that was a misrepresentation. It was in 2020. The property is located at the southwest corner of North Cora Street and Charles Street in the historic residential district. The lot is a full quarter block and is approximately 20,164 square feet or 0.46 acres. The proposed PUD and preliminary plat includes dividing the property into 7 different lots, one with the existing single family home over an attached garage, and the other 6 being townhouse lots facing Charles Street. The approximate size of each new townhouse unit is 1,560 square feet with a 580 square foot garage on the ground floor. Each unit would have 2 bedrooms and 2.5 baths. The property in this hearing have been noticed and posted in accordance with Ridgway Municipal Code standards. And moving on to kind of the analysis of the application. Well, first off, there's a lot more detail in the staff report. We can go through the numbers through the discussion, but I'm going to try to give an overview of the requests and how they relate to the standards. So we can get into the details in the discussion if needed. So first off, this parcel is identified as town core neighborhoods on the future land use map of the 2019 master plan. A table indicating the densities, primary and support uses and characteristics of the future land use classification have been provided in the memo. Staff has evaluated the goals and the policies identified in the master plan, which appear to be met by the application, and identified those in the staff report as well. The HR zone district, which is the underlying zone district, allows townhouse dwelling units in a structure containing no more than 4 units as a conditional use. The proposed use, so therefore it's allowed as a PUD, but just know that approving the PUD would allow that conditional use essentially. The gross density of the property, which is 7 units per 7 units on the 0.46 acres, is 15.4 dwelling units per acre. The net density, when looking just at the townhome components of 6 units, is approximately 25 units per acre. The memo includes a table which compares the proposed dimensional standards to the dimensional standards of the underlying zone district. And to kind of summarize those requests and that analysis, the request is to reduce lot area for lots 2 through 7, reduce lot width requirement for lots 3 through 6, reduced lot coverage on lots 4, 5, and 6, reduced side yard setbacks for lots 2 through 7 to allow for the 0-foot setback on shared lot lines, which is that interior wall and the shared party wall for the townhouse units. Of note, though, is that setbacks to the alley and North Cora are both being met, the underlying zone district standards. Access to lot 1, which is the existing single family home, is off of North Cora Street, and that access will remain through this project. Lots 2 through 6 will be accessed directly from Charles Street to the north. The project does include tuck under garages and a garage depth adequate to park 1 vehicle on site. Therefore, each unit will provide 2 on-site parking spaces for residents, which is consistent with the Ridgway Municipal Code requirements. Water and sewer infrastructure are available in the adjacent rights of way and are adequately sized to serve this project. Architectural design guidelines. The standards set forth in section 665 appear to be met since the front facade provides breaks in the plane through the use of recessed garage, a 2nd floor deck, and a 3rd floor balcony. The east side of the building, which abuts North Cora Street, meets these guidelines through a push out of the facade approximately in the middle of the wall, in addition to the use of windows and different materials on that facade. The property is in a key transition location between the historic residential neighborhood to the north, with mostly single-family detached homes, and the more commercial downtown area to the south. The proposed massing, height, and design appear to fit in this transition zone, and it appears to be appropriate for this property. The proposed landscaping plan is in general conformance with the Ridgway Municipal Code requirements. And pursuant to some of the comments provided to the applicant, there are some details that are needed, but in general, staff is comfortable with the project intentions and just needs some additional clarification in some of the calculations and the numbers. And so those are reflected in the conditions that we'll get to here in a minute. And kind of just in summary, of course, with a PUD, what you're really, one of the intentions of a PUD is to vary from the underlying zone district standards or requirements for a product that is not contemplated in that zone district. And so with this request, there are basically 5 variations that are being included in it, and those would include a conditional use to allow more than 4 townhome units in one building. 2, a reduction in required lot widths, as mentioned earlier, a reduction in lot area, as mentioned, an increase in allowed lot coverage, as also mentioned, and a decrease in interior side setbacks to 0 feet for the townhouse units. So with that, upon review of the application against the applicable town standards, town staff recommends that the Town of Ridgway Planning Commission recommend to the Town Council approval of the Ridge 6 Townhouse Subdivision PUD and preliminary plat with the following conditions. 1, the applicant shall address all outstanding planning comments identified in the planning review comment letter dated October 6th, 2021 to the satisfaction of town staff prior to the application being scheduled for consideration at the Town Council. And 2, the applicant shall address all outstanding engineering comments identified in the review comments sent to the applicant via email on September 24th, 2021 to the satisfaction of town staff prior to the application being scheduled for consideration at the Town Council. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I do see Matt is here in the audience to give a presentation as well.
Thank you, TJ.
Does anyone want a hard copy of just that site plan? I don't know if your iPads are big enough, but just the actual coverage.
So we see site plan?
Is that? I don't know, can they? It's
Yeah,
just
see one?
that.
Thank you.
You know, up there one.
Sure.
Just kind of. Look down here, look down here. So, yeah, 2 years, I guess, in the making of 2 different sketch plan meetings. And main reason being the cost of pre-construction and me doing it completely alone. So apologies for it taking so long, but I appreciate TJ's help on everything and the huge transition from Shay to TJ and getting him caught up on the project and kind of going through that process. As far as conditional comments go, we haven't submitted them yet, but we've addressed pretty much everything except for some outlying engineering issues with Joanne for the Space to Create project right now. We're obviously getting infrastructures tied in very close to each other. My ADA ramp, my curb sidewalking gutter, obviously plays a role in their new sewer lines. And so we're working through all that stuff right now, but we're working directly with Delmont and Stryker on that. So I think we'll get a resolution soon, hopefully. And other than that, I think TJ did a good job of explaining everything. When we went into sketch plan the first go around, I think we were right off approving the master plan. Really talking about densifying the core as much as we possibly can so that we don't get these sprawling townhome communities or any type of communities around the perimeter of Ridgway, first sketch plan, we did a few redesigns. Did do a 4, did do a 5. And the general feedback was, well, if you can fit 6 within with your setbacks, and the only variance is your shared wall setbacks, which is the nature of a townhome community, then go for it. And my thought there was, well, if I can get more on there, I can actually keep the price of the units down for purchase. So that's when I ran with the 6 and took quite a bit of design work to get them to fit on there and be aesthetically pleasing and be far enough back that they aren't just as close as they could be to Charles Street and still give us the side setback on Cora. So that's the nature of the density. If anyone has questions.
I have some questions. Can you explain, I think it said there's no roof overhangs, is that correct?
Well, so on the sides, there isn't. They're
On the
wrapped,
sides.
but there is a pop out. It's really hard. I wanted to get 3D renderings, but cost did not allow us to do that. So if you look at the fronts, basically those lines around, do you have that in front of you?
Yeah.
Here, I can work it out. I'm sure you can. There we go. We can get up there. So this here basically drops off and does have no overhang, but these are wraps. So around here, these have a 1 foot reveal all the way around, and then that will be wrapped inside with some sort of reclaimed wood, most likely. Obviously, the deck is a pop out. This deck is a pop out. This one doesn't have the new roof line. Well, not new roof line, but we have a cricket in here. So it's not a full valley. There's actually a full separate roof built in between those to help with drainage, which is on the new one, but I don't know that it shows. Can you scroll to the
It does somewhere.
0, 0? There it is.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's your top view. Another huge part of this was really trying to do this without a flat roof of any sort to kind of keep it not only, the issues that flat roofs have, but just to keep it aesthetically pleasing design wise. And so that basically turns into this from the front and back. You'll have a roof line that looks like that, as opposed to just these huge valleys, which will basically be the engineering in how we drain the roof without having to get up there and shovel off a flat roof or
And so it drains down. in
front and back.
In between.
Yeah, so you'll have drainage basically at all those points. There and there.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
What is the siding material?
So the sides, can you scroll back to the elevation? Thank you. So most of what you see in light red is, well, actually this is like, no, you're good, yeah. So this will all be Corten, which is what everyone knows is rusty metal, but weathering steel, so it oxidizes on purpose to protect itself. And then all of the wraps and roofs and side pop outs will be flat black propane, or not propane, but standing seam. And then downspouts, either, we're not quite sure on that, either aluminized or copper penny, but it's all going to depend on what materials are doing basically. So
Is there an opportunity for some sort of variation. Not necessarily in siding perhaps, but color of window trim or something like that to not have this be monolithically the same. Just
Had to go with our master plan.
the one of the intents of the master plan is to avoid monolithic or
Right.
monochromatic or repetitive things. So just
I think we had discussions about doing some sort of different facade on the garage doors on each unit. And then, of course, when you look at the fronts, this is the backs, but when you look at the fronts, you get much more of, it's hard to see, and that's why I really want to do renderings, but the lower deck pops out further than the master deck. And with the reason we drew in.
Preston, scroll up to, yeah.
Yeah, the reason that I drew in these kind of vestibules is that it will have way more depth that way when you look at it from the side. But I'm open to these facades. That's kind of why I didn't do any breakdowns in them, so that we could possibly change facades on fronts.
or alternate
Yeah, alternate
or
we could
something
do.
like that, so that you don't have, six
Yeah.
different, completely different
Yeah, I don't
colors.
I don't want red.
But
yellow,
some
orange.
variation, I think would help.
Just one clear, the east and west elevations are standing seam black all the way to the ground.
No, it's just the pop out. I don't know if we have a view of this.
Show the elevation side. Preston, who gets the next one down? No, next one up.
There,
So just the roof and this pop out, which is another 12-inch pop out on just those two units, will then bring down the roof color, which will follow the design facade of the front, which pops out the same foot as this. You'll have that kind of.
But the rest of this, the east and west elevation on these two units is Corten.
Yes.
I agree with Bill. We need something to break this up a little bit.
I'm open to that.
I wasn't here for the sketch plan, but I'm just a little confused why we are promoting density here, but we were a block away where Telluride Foundation was proposing 5 units. We were opposed to that and said that that would never fly and made them reduce it to 4. And here we're going for 6. And if I am thinking of it correctly, it's the exact same amount of space as far as the face of the street. So we'd be talking about Frederick Street looking north.
This is a quarter block, not a half block.
Okay, so there's more space. So
And
that-
it
Yeah, I have
is more
more,
dense than,
East to west.
but it's not apples to apples.
Okay,
You know.
yeah,
unless-
I'm just surprised by
came
the
in-
density and then the lack of variance of, it looks exact, they each look exactly the same.
That's what we were just discussing. I think there's.
And I think another option to do that on the sides, if you guys wanted to, is to do a break band in the middle of some sort, whether it be wood or follow the roof and pop out color and do Corten and something else on the sides to give it more dimension.
And what's the roof again?
Black, metal.
Corrugated or standing seam?
Standing seam.
How are you handling drainage on those eaves?
So we're planning to do heat tape front and rear. And then the gutters are also heated. And they're engineered large custom gutters front and rear. And that's the reason we added the crickets was we actually got an engineered plan that was okay with the valleys. But I wasn't comfortable with not having some extra slope up there. And so that's why we put extra time into that roof design.
But on these two elevations, the alley and Cora, there is a gutter up there?
Yes.
Yes.
And then are you still planning on doing just sewer connections, or were you going to do 6?
We approved 3 at sketch, but I'm gonna do 6. Every unit has its own water and sewer.
I don't mind. Just be full of complaints. I'm, from a climate change perspective, I'm not a big fan of the bunch of heat tape. But
It's possible that we won't need it with this roof design because the nature of the way we're facing and having so much slope. But I am going to leave it wired for it, but it's been said that it's not going to be necessary. Now, I don't want to get into a situation where it becomes by engineers, where we, for whatever reason, have a really, really gnarly winter, and it is necessary that we didn't think about it. So it's possible that if we don't need it at all, and that's the hopes in the redesign of the roof.
I have a question. Hopefully, can everyone hear me all right?
yep.
Yep.
Good, thank you. Hello and good evening. First of all, just to clarify, it's not entirely apparent in your longitudinal section there, but just to be clear, the fascia of the roof above, the lower deck will actually be much further forward than the fascia of the building. Is that correct?
Yes. Can you see what's on our screen now?
I can't, but I'm looking at the whole drawings in the section. So I was just looking at the one drawing, which I can't find now. But it was just to be clear, it's not all one flat plane as we've discussed in the front. Let me see if I can get to that drawing. I can't see.
Oh, it does stick out
Right,
further
Right,
than
so-
the top deck.
right. And but does it go past the front of the plane of the structure itself?
Yes.
Okay,
Considerable amount. It's cantilevered out there, I believe, 8 feet,
yeah,
but still in our setback.
okay. And I think it's more important that we maybe worry about the density and the layout of the lots and all those things. And it sounds like TJ's given us, said to us that most of it seems pretty good. I do want to just mention regarding your roof situation. So I own a condo up in Telluride, which is at the Viking Lodge. And I'm also an architectural designer, and we have the same kind of roofs that you're proposing here. And I would urge you to go up and take a look there because we've had a lot of problems with this kind of design and with ice damming right at the front of your cricket, and even with heat tape and other things. So I just want to throw that out there. That's been our experience. Certainly you can choose to design it however you want, but we all know that this is a north-facing project with a pretty tall facade. So there's going to be, shade issues and so forth. But I just wanted to highlight that in case you weren't thinking about that. You may want to look at that project and see what we did to deal with that. I think also Doug brought up some good questions regarding the gutters on both the east and west sides. It does sound like you have that. But there will be probably some considerable potential for snow even to slide off there. So you may want to have some, snow anchors of some sort, at least on the Cora Street side. And what else I just want to throw out there? Yeah, I would also echo what everyone else said regarding, I think the elevations, the front elevations in particular have gotten more dynamic, and that's encouraging. But I do think that it'd be helpful if we could try to find, which sounds like you're amenable with, try and find some other rhythm of different materials, small variations, maybe even just a small tinge of different coloration might work on the garage doors, something to give each one of these a little bit of identity within the whole mass. But I think, what's most important is to make sure that the planning commission is all comfortable with this density and the shrinking of the lot sizes and the setbacks and so forth. I think we all are very happy to see you working so hard to promote this kind of housing, and certainly want to take a moment to acknowledge and applaud you on that. So thank you for your thoughts.
Thank you.
I have a question for TJ. I made a note here, and I thought what you said was that typically in this zoning district, there's 15 units allowed per acre, and this would multiply out to 25. Was that correct?
That is correct. It's 6 units and essentially a quarter acre.
So I think it's probably a little far along in this process to send anything sideways, but I'm just really surprised at the density of this. And obviously I came too late in the game on this one, but that it was encouraged to go to 6. I just would like to have a better understanding of why that was. Does anybody remember?
Half of the entire lot is where Matt lives.
Uh-huh.
So this is the north portion of that lot. So when TJ is saying 25, he's just going based on lots that he's created. He's saying if you take away the rest of the open space on the backside, then it's 25.
So it's kind of like transferring density to the other side of the lot.
Yeah, kind of like that.
And yeah, so if I may just expand a little bit, that the gross density, which includes the full, essentially half acre, is about 15 units per acre. So that's a lot more palatable in the numbers that we've been talking about in other projects. I did want to bring that to the attention of the Planning Commission because there is some consideration of future development. And so if that single family home does get redeveloped in the future, I want that on the record that it's, that we've looked at both elements, and that the discussion which is being had is consistent, or that we're looking at combined, right, a full gross density for it.
So you're saying another unit couldn't be developed later in front of that existing unit over on the southeast side of this development?
At this time, it could. At this time, that lot 1 could potentially be redeveloped, right? It would have to go through a PUD amendment if this were to play out. So it would require additional public hearings, public process, full application and review. But it's again, not unheard of.
So I feel like if we're considering the full size of the lot and allowing this density, there should be something noted on here that in the future, you can't then change that and look at it a different way and develop the as I said, southeast corner of this. Are you following what I'm saying?
The other.
Yeah.
Like come back in 5 years and be like, okay, this is done and approved. You can't
So you're
now.
saying someone couldn't build a single family home, right?
I wouldn't think so, because we're arguing that we're using part of this density to transfer this density to Charles Street.
It's a public hearing, hold on. Sorry. When we're done talking up here, sorry.
Does anybody
It's the process we go through with public hearings, I apologize.
see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Thanks.
yes.
Well,
I mean, you don't have to
except
agree,
for-
but I just.
I think there's other things to be considered here. The sketch plan came through how long ago?
July 21,
Was
or
it
20.
20, July 20? So before the craziness that's happened. with-
I went through before Lena Street, actually.
So, you know, and given its location right next to downtown, we thought that this was a good place for high density. So, you know, that was the thought on the half of the quarter block, the eighth of a block that the 6 units are on. I will say that I don't think, when you look at the other eighth of that block, the other half of his property, basically where he's living in that apartment above a garage, that's an ADU essentially. So I don't think there's any reason for us to say a single family home couldn't be built in front of that. I think we could put a condition on it. We say we don't want anything more additional
I think
on
that's,
there.
yeah.
But allowing an additional unit
Yeah.
on that other half of the lot is not unreasonable.
Okay, so then we're not actually transferring density.
Well, it's all speculative.
Yeah, I mean, transferring density from.
Well,
where?
because
We're allowing density in, at the sketch plan level, we said we're willing to consider this kind of density to help deal with our housing situation. Now, the climate has changed where everybody now is sort of freaking out about the development that's going on and thinking maybe we've gone too far. So I think that's what you're feeling, having not been on the discussion back in 2020.
no, not exactly, but go ahead.
But, so that's, you know, I don't think personally, from just my perspective, that 6 units on the eighth of a block is undue. I still have concerns about the aesthetics and
Okay.
drainage, but.
So one more question and then I'll be done with this density thing, and that is, if this was not being made into a PUD, what would the allowable density be on that half of the block, normal density?
Based on the current zoning, probably that's one of the blocks with the alley going both ways. So that's, I think it would be with
Wouldn't it be
ADUs.
four,
it
wouldn't it
would
be
be-
4 units?
4 with
at least-
ADUs?
As opposed to
6?
6.
But that's
Not
it.
including the
That's
other
it, though.
half of the parcel that has the ADU on it.
Well, right, but if you're still allowed to build a front house, then that's not included, it's separate. Okay, and like I said, I wasn't here for the sketch plan and we can't go back in time, so that's, my questions are answered.
Can I address Thomas's?
Go ahead.
As far as the roof, definitely understand the issues that crickets have, and we drew them out a little further for that, so you get more coverage with it. But I am totally open to his advice on that. And the other thing I wanted to note, just as far as the aesthetics in the front breakup, it's kind of hard to tell on the elevations, but the garages are set back in. So not only does that lower level have a lot of varying geography to it, but we did also push the building as far back as we could. So it's really hard with all the lines on here, but you know, they sit way back off Charles Street, which I think will help a lot. As far as not having a big monolithic wall down Charles. And we did, with the roof design and the way we did the top level, I believe we're a little over 5 feet under my limit with the average roof height in the Ridgway Municipal Code. So it wasn't fun to draw it or design it, but I understand the issues with people's, I live here. I want it to look good. I'm not going anywhere. And I don't want to live next to something that looks like it was just thrown up. So design is one of my passions. I didn't build my house, so please don't use it as an example. But I do not want to put something on that corner that we all drive by every day or walk by every day and say, I can't believe they did that. So I completely get all the design feedback. I'm open to all the advice, and I think as soon as we do get some renderings out there, it'll be a lot more clear on the breakup of it, and totally open to different facades on each unit, maybe alternating just to not have too much of a dramatic corner there, but yeah, I think once I have a better drawing of the way it's gonna look, it won't feel so monolithic, but when you see it in the elevations now, yeah, I understand. I said the same thing. I was like, oh God, this looks awful. We can't do this. But then it's like, okay, we're X amount into pre-construction. Renderings are gonna be this and this and this and this, and it was all just to the point of like, we've got full structurals. We have a full civil, we're ready to dig, basically. So I had to kind of put a halt on more design work to get through this process and then go from there. But all the design input, I'm totally open to it and appreciate it too.
So I hadn't been involved in any of the previous meetings on this as well, so I'm kind of new to this. But my take on this is the densities. I appreciate what you're doing, and I appreciate the effort you're trying to make here. The density seems high, and again, the monolithic block look. I also have concerns about just the amount of light, not for the units themselves, but on the other side. So as far as the street and as far as the neighbors to the north, I know there's a fair amount of elevation change just across the street there. So those are my concerns. I would like to see some updated front looks where we can potentially address that monoblock look and potentially even some story poles, just to get an idea of what our shade of this is going to be. And I know you've pushed them back, and that's obvious, but I'm really kind of curious what that's going to be.
The last time we did kind of a sun evaluation, we will have less of a shadow than the trees that are there now. Our building will be shorter than the trees that are there now. It'll cast less of a shadow because we moved it so far back. I addressed that because of the neighbor comments in the sketch plan, and I totally understand it. I wish that my lot wasn't facing that direction, but that's the reason, you know, I pushed it as close as we legally could to my own house to address the fact that, yeah, it's north facing, but unfortunately we're on a grid and we tried multiple times to do like different variations of alley entrances and different entrances, and it really just got messy with engineering. And I'm sure you guys have seen that in some sketch plans where if you do all this configuring and then the roadways have to be there, it just doesn't work. And so I wanted to keep it friendly to the grid as far as what we already have, and then be able to provide the public improvement of sidewalk, curb and gutter to match Voyager the best that we can, and to take into consideration that we have some alleys that aren't quite updated for that infrastructure, but that way we'll be able to kind of tie in naturally, as opposed to having like roadways going in and out of a little like 2 and 2 and 2 thing. And it just multiple layouts is the best, considering all the input on both sketch plans.
Thank you, Matt. I'm gonna go ahead and open up for public comment. And we can come back to Matt later. So anyway, if you want to make any comments, step to the podium, state your name and address.
Jack Petroselli, 540 Marion Overlook in thriving Ridgway, Colorado. I want this to be real positive. I don't want this to sound as a criticism of the project. I kind of like the project, but I have 4 questions. Are these units allowed ADUs on approval? No, because of the PUD, is that correct? Then the next question is, I didn't think so, I just wanted to ask it. Next question, I've heard Jennifer or John or TJ, one of the 3 of you, refer to the space in the lower right-hand side of that drawing as open space. Is that open space or is that not open space?
Right now.
In the proposed plan. I've heard that in a public hearing and it kind of like, whoa, open space.
No, it's his property.
Right, so it's not open space. So does that change the density calculations? We can leave that question out there. And the third question of the four that I have is when I built the Escalante townhomes several years ago, and I proposed row housing, and I was told I was not allowed to build identical houses. That because of the Ridgway single family design code, I had to have each house have a different personality and a different look. We spent thousands of dollars redesigning it so that each some had stucco, some had wood, and had different reliefs, and it was not row houses. I like row houses, but I was not allowed to build it. And the fourth question I have is, if we're going for a preliminary plot approval, it's been my experience in a preliminary plot, all the design stuff has been worked out. And it seems like we're waiting for more information on colors and setbacks and textures. And is that something that's going to be handed off to city council or town council? How does that get handled if it's not handled tonight? So those are my questions.
Thank you, Jack. Anybody else? Okay, close public comment.
Anybody online? Did you receive a letter from the citizen?
Believe so.
Look. So I was told to share one with you, to share it as well. Want to make sure that got added in. I'm sorry, what? A letter from the citizen. Wanted to comment on this, who's not attending the meeting.
How do we go about answering the questions that were posed? And we close public comment, so there wouldn't be any, he can't say anything back when we answer those questions?
Yeah.
Is that how that works?
Take comment, yes.
And are we going to answer those questions?
If you want to address them, yes. You can do that.
Well, I don't have the answers. Do you?
Do you want staff to address each question one by one, or what are your thoughts, Michelle?
Well, the one question that's fresh in my mind was the last one, and that is, are we going to require, the planning commission gonna need to see what these finishes, the variation of finishes are, or are we good with staff covering them?
I think direction from you all is imperative here, as you see the conditions in the staff recommendation, or the recommendation revolves around approval with conditions, having the applicant address the outstanding planning comments and engineering comments. And again, if you all want to provide additional direction on design elements, et cetera, now's the time to do that so they can be considered and incorporated accordingly before going forward to town council. Does that answer your question?
That answers that question. And then the density question, I believe, is the one that I kind of went in circles on, which was there's 15 allowed per acre. This was, if you just considered this half section of the 6 units, that would be more like 25 per acre. But then it went back around. If you considered the whole parcel, then it would be more like 15. But considering the whole parcel is saying, well, right now, because there's not a front house, but if there's a front house, then that changes all that.
But it changes by one,
Yeah,
density of
one
one,
addition.
and we do not count ADUs now.
Yeah.
You approve it and they're up, everybody's allowed to build an ADU. So if we're judging that, if you want to do the plat note, we can do that.
No, I'm not
That's-
saying I
that's
need to do the plan,
recommendation.
I'm just trying to address the questions that
But
were.
what we have is a large lot. And if TJ, if you run the numbers on the interior units, what the density would be if you extrapolated that out to an acre?
Yes, it's 25 units per acre.
No, a single unit.
What are you asking? I'm not clear.
Give me just a second. I'll run that calculation. I think I understand it based on the lot size,
7 lots.
right? Yeah, just a second. I'll run that if you guys want to.
Thanks, TJ. And Michelle, to be clear, historically, what we often do at Planning Commission is take the concerns that come up in reviewing the application and either decide that they're serious enough that we want to either ask the applicant to agree to continue and come back with more information, we got a gamut of options up. We can do that, we can deny the application, we can put additional conditions on top of the conditions that TJ recommends that talk about having the applicant address our aesthetic concerns about the monolithic nature and the identical structures. I mean, I think Jack's point about the row houses and stuff, I mean, I feel like almost every one of us up here has said we're not really happy with the way it looks like 6 identical units without a whole lot of variation in surface treatment. And so I think in some way or another, we need to address that, whether it's, again, asking the applicant if he's willing to come back for.
So more than just us making that comment, there's more follow-up than that.
As much follow-up as we want to ask.
Okay.
That's my experience with work.
I don't remember all the other questions. I don't know that they were all questions. Some of them were kind of comments, which is fair enough.
I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of, sorry, but I'm thinking of your, I'm thinking of your mention of the row house.
The row house issue was one, the ADU question was another.
When the ADU question was answered, there,
Right.
no.
The density, whether that's open space, how that affects the density.
TJ's working on a
TJ's working
calculation.
on it, but I still don't believe that it's an issue because, you know, I would, even before you bring it up, I was going to suggest that we say that the balance of his property be allowed to have one single family home in addition.
Yeah, it's kind of a use by right.
Yeah.
So.
It's not
yeah.
because this is a PUD, but yeah, I mean, and I guess you're right in that the balance of the property is not part of a PUD. So we need to put that condition on there just so that.
Well, and I'm just saying you
Future
can't
property.
calculate it one way and then say it the other way. I just wanted to be clear. I'm not suggesting that we add a plat note necessarily. I just want to be clear, like this density is this density. You can't consider the rest of it as it is if it's allowed to change.
So in just one comment, I guess, I would make on Jack's mention of the row house situation. I sympathize with you, but I think there's a lot of development relative to density that has changed since your application. And timing is everything in that sense. But I certainly sympathize with your situation of having been denied.
What units are those? Are those here in town? Escalante?
Yeah.
He wasn't allowed to.
No, but
to
where
do-
are they?
They're.
Oh, okay.
So, anyway, but that has nothing to do with the fact that, you know, he had to do a lot.
I consider that more of a comment
So
than a question.
exactly.
Do we want TJ's answer?
Where are you at, TJ?
He's got his.
Yeah,
ad-
so what I just did, and I want to make sure I've got this calculation correct. First, the interior lot sizes of these, so lots 3, 4, 5, and 6 are 1,533 square feet. So I looked at that, divided that by 43,560, which is an acre, and that's 28 dwelling units. So 28 of those lots you could fit in 1 acre. Okay. Then I did the average, which is set of all 6 lots there. So included lots 2 and 7, which are larger. The average lot size there is 1727. And that, for all you mathematicians at home, shouldn't be too much of a surprise, came to 25 units per acre. So we still, even looking at that, the lot sizes, if you will, it's still in that 25 to 28 units per acre. If that helps answer that question.
Thank you, TJ. It does, because if you you look at a 14 lot block, you put a house on a 3,000 square foot lot and then you add an ADU to it, you'd be right there.
That is correct. Yeah.
What are most blocks, 12? The Tired Foundation have blocks 12, not
It's
14.
12 to the side.
12.
On the most, except for these blocks where there's now a split in both ways. And then there's 10 on each side, 20 total. This was originally five town lots.
And again, just to be clear, I'm not saying we should renege on the sketch plan. I wasn't here. If this was approved, this was approved, but I'm just concerned about setting precedents in the next application that comes in and wants to do something like this. Are we going to be like, well, that was then and this is now, you can't do that. Just wanting to be super clear on what we're approving here so that when the next person comes, we know where we were.
It's my understanding PUDs don't set precedent. PUDs are negotiation with the town and staff. You know, they're unique to each example.
And some water.
And these are free market, and then we've had other ones where you've asked like, what's the square footage coming in at and that sort of thing. So not a concern on this one.
What's your question?
Well, we were looking at a free market one. Was it over on Lidell? And there was different questions about what do you think your square footage price is going to be? And
Well, I was gonna ask that.
okay,
What, Matt, what you think that, the target price for these units is gonna be either by the square foot?
At this, at what we're at right now, obviously, we're constantly recalculating this. It went all the way up to damn near double what I wanted these things to be when I came to sketch plan, and we're kind of settling back in, and I want to get them under 700.
700.
I don't want to, also don't want to be someone who tells you a number and then it completely changes like we've seen in some of our developments recently. So I don't want to tell you, yeah, these are going to be 500,000, they come out at 925. So I'm doing the best I can. I don't want to, I'm not trying to gouge anyone, and in this density, I can get the best numbers per square foot to build. And when I was crunching fours, it was okay, we got to make bigger units and we got to make them expensive and we got to make them super high end. I'm not saying they're going to be low end, but the numbers worked out best with this scenario as far as being able to get attainable. I'm not going to use the word affordable because I don't think it means anything. Attainable housing for people that live here. And there's 2 local people that are ready to purchase.
Well, we all know what the cost of construction has gotten to, and so I think your answer is understandable. We all like to.
Oh, and then this is one thing I don't think any of us touched on. Short-term rentals are not allowed in any of them.
That's good.
Well, I'd say, kind of trying to sum up and get us to a point where we could make a motion. My biggest concern still is, in the moment I first looked at this packet, is that, I've always got the voices in the back of my head of some of my friends and neighbors who are like, well, this isn't Ridgway. Well, what is Ridgway? But it's, in my view, it's altogether all the same. Partly to Jack's point about row houses, partly just, single family home design standards are, well, yes, there's fenestration, there's ins and outs, but I'm picturing that you don't have the renderings, but I can picture in the back of my mind what this looks like from an off angle. And while there's ins and outs, it's a repetitive thing. And so I'm tossed up because I know sending you back to the drawing board and asking for changes like this is only going to make it more expensive, right? So it's always a balance. It's always trying to figure out how to get a project that we're all gonna be proud of and that we're all gonna be happy to have go up out of the ground in Ridgway. While at the same time trying to make them as cost effective as possible. So, I would like to see us, whether it's a condition or some other approach, I'd like to see us have Matt take a stab at trying to create a little bit more visual
variation. And could I just chime in here for a second? I think a lot could be done with directional of siding, horizontal, vertical, mixing that up, possibly color with windows, within a, not asking for, 12 different colors or whatever, but it would be good to see some concrete, so to speak, some concrete ideas on how to make this look varied.
Okay.
Different
And
railings,
break.
different railings.
Possibly.
I can do,
But
I don't know if I'm allowed to talk.
Yeah.
I think I'm totally understand where you guys are coming from. Like I said, I wished that I could have had 3D renderings done. And I think a condition of providing 3D renderings with maybe, let's say, 3 design options where I do change facades, sidings, and the condition of that still has to be approved by the planning commission. With renderings, obviously all my renderings are going to be the same angle, but I'll go in and I will change options and then provide samples if needed of material.
So in that case, would a continuance?
Is that what you're suggesting? You're willing to come back? and-
I was coming on condition, but I don't know how it.
A continuance means you're asking
To come back next.
to come back
to
next
planning commission rather
meeting
than-
and with some variations. And I think at this point, that might be a good,
That would be my preference.
yeah.
That would be
It's-
my
it's-
preference.
I mean, that direction, I'd also like to get the public comment that Karen's got
Yes,
before we make any motions.
yeah, chairperson.
Yes.
We did get a letter from a resident at the last hour, but not in enough time to add it to the packet. So I do need to read it into the record.
Go ahead.
Food for thought. He's made several points. This letter is from Raymond Ferguson. Okay, and he says, "Dear Planning Commission, first I'd like to thank you for the hard work and efforts that you made and many of the town staff apply to these meetings and proceedings. I believe that many of the recently approved and in progress developments have been carefully considered and that they conform to the Ridgway Master Plan and are also quite needed. The Vista Commons and New Telluride Foundation housing projects are examples of your good efforts. However, there is a project on your agenda tonight that does not warrant approval in its present description. I believe the proposed Ridge 6 townhouse project fails to meet the master plan and the concerns of neighbors in several areas that I will outline below. So first is density. The block the project is proposed for is already bearing a heavy development burden. This project and the space to create building would occupy 1/2 of a primary town core block. The space to create project has the potential of 64 tenants and potentially 64 cars, while at the same time removing a quarter block of free parking. The Ridge 6 project has the potential for 24 tenants and 24 cars. The density of the combined half block area has been 2 to 3 people for many years. And with these 2 projects, it could now be 88 people. While the previous situation of 2 to 3 was very low, this is a huge increase in density. roughly 20-fold. And while the Ridgway master plan calls for increased density in the city core, this combined impact is unwarranted, unnecessary, and irreversible step which will affect the town core for perpetuity. This will set a very unwarranted precedent that will be harder to deny in the next petition to the next petitioner. Variances. Project lists 24 variances needed to proceed. This seems like a large number for variances for any proposed building project. Is there a history of granting this many variances to any previous projects? The next point is height. Does every new project near the town core absolutely need to be 3 stories tall? I can only think of one three-story building in town, and it's on the state highway. Combined with the unbroken facade of 6 townhomes, this presents 142 feet by 35 feet vertical rectangle. This is the equivalent of erecting a drive-in movie screen in downtown Ridgway. The next point is sunlight. A 35-foot tall building casts a shadow of nearly 70 feet in the depth of winter, dooming Charles Street, the Core Street intersection, and surrounding properties to months of ice pack and extended dark shadows. The next point is parking and walkability. Project eliminates nearly a full block of town Core Street parking as it adds to the parking burden with an undetermined number of more cars. It also proposes 6 driveway cuts in 1/2 block, which exits nowhere else in town. The 6 driveways will render the sidewalk much less walkable and likely be lighted ice all winter. Excuse me. Slips on ice are common on the south side of Clinton by Sherbino, where a much shorter building leads to perpetual ice. The next point is affordability. The project purports to be an effort to provide much needed affordable and attainable housing, but I wonder for who. It is a $4 million development as projected by the builder. A reasonable return of 17% brings it to a $4,680,000. Divide that by 6 and you get an average unit cost of $780,000 or $500 per square foot. I don't consider that attainable or affordable to the working people that live in Ridgway. The more likely buyer will be from out of town with the affluence to ignore this cost and no incentive to house any local residents or workers. The next point and last point is neighborhood character and aesthetics. New development should respect the character of quote, new development should respect the character of existing development, end quote. The Ridge 6 project presents itself as meeting this master plan criteria, but I would argue that it does not. There is no other similar structure within the neighborhood, much less are there any that could house 24 people and their cars. Thank you for your time and consideration.
I didn't hear where Raymond lives, so we usually have a.
Right across the street. Directly north. Project.
And I do know he is a resident from working here, so I can confirm that. I just couldn't give the address off the top of my head. But it came in, like I said, it came in at the last hour and there wouldn't have been enough time to put it in your packet anyway, but now that we know it's out there.
Thank you.
So, Matt, do you want to request a continuance?
And the other option is just to ask for a condition of design changes. I just don't, what are my options, I guess?
Well, we either give the continuance or we're going to end up with a motion and there'll be a vote.
Okay. So if we do the design changes, you guys won't be able to see them again, or it just goes straight to town council? Is that?
If it's done as a condition, yes. And that's, we'd rather see them, obviously.
Yeah, let's see, next meeting,
We could have that. If I could prepare that, that could be on next meeting. Okay, I'm fine with that. I understand.
Okay, somebody want to make a motion to continue then?
so moved.
Second.
Okay, got a motion, got a second? Will the clerk please poll the commission?
Okay, Commissioner Emelson,
I,
Lisk,
Aye.
Montague,
Aye.
Nelson,
I,
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer,
Aye.
Mayor Clark,
Aye.
and Chairperson Canright.
Aye,
Thanks, Matt.
thank you, Matt.
Really appreciate it.
Are we, are you clear on what we're asking?
I believe so, but it would, I guess, yeah, if you wanna give me,
Well, I think, just a sec, Chad, I think you heard pretty loud and clear that,
okay,
our biggest concern is breaking up the facade of the 6 units and making it look unique to the degree possible. Dealing with the drainage, potential drainage issues, I think is another big one. While I totally respect Raymond's comments, I think that they are being addressed. And it's, change is always really hard. And there's so many blocks in town that have had a density of 3 people per block for years, but they've always had the potential for much more. So, and again, I'll reiterate that any one PUD approval is not precedent setting for another PUD. They're all taken on their own merits. So just to address those concerns. But yeah, we would like to see you do as much as you can to make them look different. If anybody wants to add to that?
And yeah, if I may,
I
thanks.
do.
I think, excuse me, I think between TJ and myself, we took some really good notes and should be able to articulate what, or to Matt, what the requested, or what the direction and the requested changes are for next month.
Great.
Of course, these meetings are on YouTube, so there's that.
Thomas, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks again. And thanks a lot, Matt. I think you've done a really good job. I know this has been really hard and you've been at it many times in front of us and you seem very agreeable to working with us, which I really respect. And I also want to mention, I think Michelle's bringing up a lot of good points too, that I think it's hard for us to kind of take on, approving something like this the way it is. I had a couple quick thoughts I just want to leave for the notes, constructive thoughts for you. One thing that I think no one has seen, or we don't really require it, but I think it would be really important to have, especially in this situation, is what I had to do in architecture school, which is called a streetscape. And it means you go down, a block or two in either direction when you're looking at and you put the project into to scale so that you can really see how the mass of this particular project, relates to the mass of the other buildings next door to it. Because I think that's one of the issues that's hard for a lot of us to get our head around is the project itself is dense, but that's not a problem in certain areas where there's other similar density. It's right now that it's in this transitional place and the town is going through a lot of transitions too. So that's kind of an issue, but a streetscape, which of course is more time and money to draw up, does help everyone see its relationship. And that could be something that might be helpful in convincing us how it works. That's one thought. The other thing, if it's really expensive to come up with the 3D renderings, one thing I would suggest is if you just add some shadows to the front elevations, it really helps pop the drawing and show, what is protruding and what is not. Because right now it reads as a flat plane, and I think that's what's doing you a disservice right now in the way you're trying to sell it. The other thing was obviously everyone's talked about the siding, the railing, the colors, lots of opportunity for you to vary there. I will say that I'm on a bit of a tour right now and I'm looking at a lot of similar projects all over. And one thing I'm noticing is everyone's trying so hard to actually vary things so much that it actually starts to become this total mishmash of things that it's overdone. So I caution you to do, subtle changes, but just enough so that it doesn't read as one monolithic wall. That's what I think a lot of people are saying. I'm sure you're picking that up. One last thing, which I don't know if it's actually possible for you because everything's so tight regarding the back, the setback at the rear to the south. but I am seeing, I think that the entire rear south plane of the building is all in one plane, aside from the little, awnings over the windows. Is that correct?
No, it matches the front with the same kind of vestibule pop out, wrapping each unit.
Okay, all right. So there is a little bit of play there. So that's helpful. Okay, so we'll get a little bit of shadowing there too. And then the last thing I just wanted to add, which no one has really talked about, but I think the most other critical elevation that will play a big role in this, the front or the north elevations, it looks like you've done a really good job of trying to vary and break it up in terms of the massing. But the elevation to the east on Cora facing the school is still rather planar a little bit. And so right now everyone sees all these trees there and there's a softness to that. And of course they're going to go away. But I would encourage you, if you can, to come up with something along a very thin bit of landscaping you have left that would act as a bit of a screen on that east elevation, and or to step down and soften from the building to the sidewalk. You might even consider doing one of those things where you put the wire mesh on there and allow vines maybe or something to grow over time. I don't know, but that might help soften it so that people walking by, again, which is what you're trying to achieve, won't feel this sense of this ominous this thing. So either way, that's my comments. I just want to throw out there at the end. I think you're going to do a great job, and we look forward to seeing what you have when you come back.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
add to Thomas about the landscaping. It might actually help, and I know you don't have that much space for it, but landscaping might help with the ice and the drainage. And if there's like some kind of berm or something that, can help with the drainage and not ice coming out, especially on that corner on Charles and Cora, because that's obviously a big problem right there.
Yeah, it's hard to tell on the site plan, but that is all part of our landscaping plan to wrap that side of the building in the required amount of shrubs and mulch and such, which is a part of our huge stormwater plan, which I'm sure you stopped reading somewhere half through, so extensive. But all of that stuff, and then even in front, we have planters that tie into the water biofiltration system. And yeah, that's all been taken into account to definitely help soften the building from the streets.
Preston, could you just go to the east elevation? Because I think, Matt, TJ made this, no, just down, there, right there. TJ made this point as well, but if I understand you correctly, this is black, correct?
Yes.
The bump out. So is this.
Right.
But it doesn't read that way.
Right. No, and it will.
And it's going to need to help us, help you convey what, what this is actually going to look like.
These are off of the structural. So what I'll do is just put together a design.
So is that center section a pop out and
Yeah.
are those windows?
Yes. It goes all the way up from.
I also am noticing that I'm not sure if this is what you intended, but the roofing and the siding are rendered the same, and it sounded like the siding was going to be corrugated and the roof was going to be standing seam. So they would definitely look different, which would also help that. You may want to make a different change on that too.
So just so that we get a maximum amount of information, of accurate information.
Just seeing that side, I think it's really hard to understand it until we get it turned a little bit, but the windows, and you'll actually see the staircases through those windows on both levels. So they'll be lit. I think it'll have a good amount of dimension once I can portray it a little better. And I agree, I don't want to get crazy and have like 50 different tiles everywhere and things go in different angles, but I'll play with it to break it up as much as I possibly can between units without creating too much of a eyesore the other way.
I think you've got enough to design critique. But I would like to, the one issue, since I review this is large property, we're breaking up into 7 lots. If you would proactively indicate that you will be agreeable or present a plat note that beyond one single family dwelling on your current property, there will be no more development. That carries forward with the land. So if we get Matt to agree to it and we don't plat note it, then Matt sells his place, somebody could go
Right.
back. So I say, let's make sure that open space is open space.
Yeah, okay.
It's not open, so don't call it open.
I know. It's close.
Space that,
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Matt.
Thank you,
Really
Matt.
Appreciate
you.
appreciate it.
it. I think.
Sorry for anyone.
So I want to apologize to John and Michelle. My questions were to be answered, they were just a bit flawed.
I should know apology.
More clear about that.
That's all right.
So,
We try to be conscientious of that. Sometimes people don't think we are.
Hey, I just want to jump in for a second. Doug, can you just clarify something, what you just said? So it's my understanding that Matt owns, obviously, the lot we're talking about to the south, which only has what we're maybe loosely referring to as a possible ADU, and that there's still room for him to build a main house in the front. Are you suggesting that we actually have a note that says he would agree not to build anything there?
No, that
No,
you
no.
would agree to build nothing more than the additional.
One single family dwelling.
Right. Okay. Great. So that's fine. I just want to make sure I heard that correctly. I
Definitely state that that unit he lives in now was built as an ADU with the intent of another home being built in front of it eventually. So that's what
Right.
we're talking.
I understand. Okay, I just was thinking that we were going to actually restrict someone from actually building that, but that good. Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right, we've beaten this dead horse.
Yes.
Within an inch of its life.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, public hearing. The item is an evaluation of existing conditional use permit. Location was town of Ridgway, block 2, lots 6 through 9. The address is 160 South Amelia Street, zone downtown service DS. Applicant Christina Olin, owner Christina Olin. TJ.
Hey, so this is going to be a little bit of a different one than we've had in the past. So we're evaluating an existing conditional use permit. So an original conditional use permit, a rezoning, and a master sign plan were approved in 2003 for a medical office use on this parcel. In 2007, that CUP was updated and additional conditions were placed on it. And one of those conditions was that the CUP be evaluated, be evaluated every 2 years. If you didn't see that, I had air quotes going because there's no process for evaluating a CUP per se. So to our knowledge, in talking with town staff as well, this CUP has not been evaluated in a number of years. So we kind of came up with a proposed process to evaluate it, which is why we're here this evening. We thought that it was something that would fall within the purview of the Planning Commission to evaluate the CUP. And what that means is, back when it was approved, since then, have there been violation? Have there been concerns, issues with the allowed use? Because what a CUP means is that we're allowing a use that is more intense than the underlying zoning might allow by right. And so we want to make sure that it's still compatible with the neighborhood and still being the needs and the impacts are being met and the impacts are being mitigated. So and the reason that this kind of comes up now is that the owner of the property has brought up to the town about wanting a new tenant in that property, and they're asking whether or not it fits within the CUP and how to go about doing that. So what you have in the packet is an interpretation that we CPS made based on the CUPs that we evaluated and based on our understanding of the use. And that evaluation and interpretation concluded that we believe that it is consistent with the approved CUP. So we have two items here this evening for your consideration and discussion. One is, have there been adverse impacts or violations of the use on the property that would warrant a new the current CUP to become void, and therefore requiring a new CUP? And two, does the proposed use as presented, both in the packet as well as probably some discussion here this evening with the applicant and owner, does that appear to be consistent with the CUP and consistent with the interpretation that we've made? So it's a little bit, again, we're trying to muddle through a process that isn't well defined, but definitely wanted to at least bring it here for discussion and consideration this evening. So I hope I didn't confuse it even more, but happy to answer any questions that you might have about procedurally or otherwise.
My question is, are you developing a process for us to actually do these evaluations every 2 years?
Well, so that is the evaluation of a CUP is not a requirement of the code, the Ridgway Municipal Code. It's a condition that was placed on it.
Okay.
So what I would suggest that if in the future a similar condition were put on there, it would be something along the lines of be evaluated by the Planning Commission every 2 years, and then we can at least have the dialogue. So I don't know that we need to establish a process to evaluate it in general, since it's not necessarily something that would be done across the board.
I agree. I think what should have been done is that tickler should have been put on the staff calendar to say this is going to pop back up in 2 years.
Yeah.
2 years from the original approval, and it'd go on the agenda that we would notify the property owner that we'd be reviewing our CUP at that meeting. I think we can do that going forward. It just got dropped through the cracks because we were a lot more casual back then.
Do we feel that 2 years is the appropriate amount of time? I mean, it's gone a really long time now.
Well, I think we should take that question up with all these other, I think we should actually probably address the other questions first. And then to me, the last question would be, do we really need every 2 years to discuss it?
Now, a question I have for TJ, for any members of the commission, isn't this now downtown service? Isn't the underlying?
Correct. It says that on the.
Yeah. So this was this CUP originated? When did downtown serve? When did he do downtown service? Because
that's a good question.
Because I'm just thinking one of the reasons we may have wanted to look at it every 2 years is because it may have preceded the downtown service zoning.
Yeah, because originally was over the.
Yeah, exactly. So now that it is more in conformance with its zoning, I think we can sort of move through this a little more quickly, perhaps.
So if I may,
Yeah.
one of the attachments is a staff report from Mr. Greg Clifton back in 2003. I think when the conditional use permit was initially approved. One of the first sentences says, quote, the reason conditional use is required for uses under the downtown services district, which signifies to me that it had already been in place back in 2000.
But it was an overlay district, it wasn't zoning. Property wasn't zoned that way, my recollection.
Well, The DS zone is a zone, it's just an overlay zone.
Right.
So,
Right.
overlay zoning means that properties within it effectively have a couple of different zoning designations. All right, do you want to let the owner or applicant make some comments?
Yes. Okay. Would the applicant like to add anything?
Hi.
Sorry about the siren.
Yeah, sorry. I'm Christina Olin. I'm the new owner, so I did not miss those 2-year intervals. Yeah, basically, I'm not asking for a change in use, just new tenants. And as outlined in this, and Jamie's here, he's the one that's applying to rent the building. It's less use as well. And we have adequate parking, 19 spaces plus 2 on the street. And they'd only have potentially 5 to 7 employees. Yeah.
Great.
Would you like to hear from Jamie?
Sure.
Sure. Why not?
Everybody, just as a historical footnote, I'm actually living in one of Jack's
Escalante.
towns, so I always had to mention that.
Transparency.
6 degrees of separation.
It's a small town. Yeah, exactly. I'm Jamie Gomez. I'm the executive director with the West Region Welfare Council. We're a nonprofit organization that works in the 6-county West Region or Region 10. Obviously, Uray County is being one of them, and it's actually one of the more active counties that we work in on wildfire mitigation, wildfire preparedness, outreach, education, technical assistance, financial incentives to help prepare our communities for wildfire. And so we currently have an office in Montrose. For a variety of reasons, we've been interested in moving to Ridgway. And as it turns out, this space just more recently became an opportunity for us to look at. And so essentially we have a small staff. Unlike the medical facility, we don't have a lot of foot traffic, a lot of people coming in and out. We essentially use our office like almost any other kind of more small, we don't have a lot of in and out of folks. It's just for staff use is kind of what we use our office building for, or office space for. And so that was essentially what we're proposing here, to move our offices to Ridgway and to rent from Christina. And happy to answer any questions about sort of our operation and how we would be intending to use the office or whatever comes up.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So a question I had reading this, as I was assuming it was about signage. No, not at all.
No.
But the sign will change, but that doesn't need any kind of approval.
No, the master sign plan still applies, and it's probably gonna be simpler now because there'll be 1 tenant.
Yeah.
So I mean, my take is this is way simpler and way less impactful than the current use.
Yeah, I think that's what confused me. I was like, this is so simple. What are we doing?
Well, it's one of those cases where I think we have to, cross all the Ts and dot all the Is.
I see. I was looking for an example of the new sign.
No, it's really about.
I think TJ's really spelled out that this is no more than and possibly less impact than what the original tenant use was going to be. So I don't see a problem with it.
I agree.
No, yeah, me neither. As a matter of fact, if tenant stays there, do we need to do this every 2 years?
We'll do it 18 years, like.
No, I mean, wouldn't it be more efficient to have this come up if there is a change in tenants?
Yeah.
Well, then the question would be, do we have to amend the CUP?
That's what I was going to say, that if we start moving into the direction of that, it would be an amendment to the CUP, which we can certainly bring forward if needed, but we would have to notice that. That's very different than what we've noticed for this evening, and things like that.
Yeah. Let's keep this as simple as possible. Yeah.
I guess I would ask you, do you feel like you'd like to get rid of that 2-year review and
Yeah, I think just in terms of rental agreements, promising a business or nonprofit a window of 2 years, and then you may have to find another place
it's
is
not?
a bit unsettling. We're discussing 5 years.
Right.
And if nothing's changing with the business.
Yeah.
I don't see what difference it makes really.
And so we're allowing up to 7 employees, is that correct?
I think it's 8, 5
So
plus
maybe we
3.
look at amending.
Oh, yeah, plus.
I think they were approved. And sorry, am I allowed to just converse with you? We're actually going till then.
That's fine. And
Yeah.
also, this is a public hearing, so we need to open the public hearing at some point.
Mhm.
We can
Okay.
discuss in the meantime.
I think it was approved for what I read, 6 employees plus a front desk person as well. So 7.
The original CP.
And is that enough? You think for the next 5 years or?
I think so. Honestly, the space itself kind of lends itself for that. We currently have like 3.5 full-time employees. We're planning to hire 2 more in the next 6 months. But beyond that, we don't have any growth plans. And honestly, the space as it stands now isn't really going to accommodate much more than that. Unless we really start wanting to cram people in, but answer is no.
It's currently 5 offices and a reception area.
So we may have covered this and I'm just a little confused, but why does this business have to come to us with this? Other businesses along that street don't have to do that. So what's special?
Because their specific conditional use, the planning commission at the time decided it needed to be reviewed, probably because it's more impactful than your typical DS use. Like a construction office with far fewer employees and far fewer visits. I think it was all about, whether the impacts to the neighbors were going to be serious enough that we'd have to scale it back.
As the integrative medicine place where there are practitioners and.
Right.
Yeah.
Where patients came.
But now that it's not going to be that anymore, why is it still open for review every 2 years? What makes it different?
Because we have to, as these guys just said, we have to amend the existing conditional use permit to remove that.
I see.
2-year. And I'm going to suggest that we do that. To me,
I agree.
the current proposed uses continue to be aligned with the approved CUP and acknowledge that uses may continue under the previously approved CUP for another 2 years. And then we direct staff to work with Christina to bring us a amended CUP that doesn't have that 2 year.
Yeah.
That's the
Yes.
appropriate way to deal with it.
Yeah, I agree.
Right?
Thank
Yeah.
you.
In fact, if there's any, well,
And if I just might expand on that just a second, that we're not necessarily, the inquiry and the use is not initiating this conversation and the issue on the agenda. It just happens to be that that's what told us that, we then looked at the CUP and said, oh, we need to review it every 2 years. So it's a condition of the CUP, not a condition of the use.
right.
Yeah. Okay.
And actually, well, given that statement, the every 2 year review, I still think Christina's going to want to remove that for the ease of being able to rent the space effectively and not have it hanging over anybody's head. So why don't you go ahead and ask for public
Yeah,
comment?
okay. This is a public hearing, so if anybody would like to make any comments, step forward, identify yourself.
Going once?
Okay, closing public comment. Do we need a motion?
I think we do.
Yes, I think that'd be best.
I'll make a motion that the planning commission has reviewed the use and reviewed the unfortunate lengthy, oversight of not having the 2-year review on the original CUP for the last however many years. But we agree that the current and proposed uses continue to be aligned with the approved CUP and acknowledge that they may continue under the previously approved CUP for the 2 years. And I will additionally suggest that the town staff meet with the property owner to come up with a amended CUP removing that 2-year requirement for review and bring that to us at a future meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please poll the commission?
Sure.
Okay, we're gonna,
Take a poll. Are we ready? Okay. Excuse me, Commissioner Ilson,
aye.
Lisk,
Aye.
Montague.
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer,
Aye.
Mayor Clark.
Aye.
And Chairperson Cameron.
Aye.
There you go.
Just a
Thank you.
comment, John, I think that if there had been an issue or complaint, that would have brought it up to be reviewed again, and no one obviously has complained about the use, and therefore,
There
There were
was
complaints back in
concerns
2000.
about the UPS,
I think, right?
but then it at a certain point, it backed up to the guitar shop, so.
Yeah.
So who's complaining about who?
And actually over the last however many years, 5 years at least, the use of that building has decreased greatly.
Yeah.
Since the previous owner, Dr. Dagenhart, moved away, there were a lot less visits.
Yep.
There you go.
All right.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Welcome to Ridgway. And I hope that wasn't a wildfire.
I don't think the weather. No, they're not.
I think we're probably safe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I have a motion on the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Is anybody here who wasn't at that meeting? Who can vote?
That would be me.
Okay, all right, thank you, Thomas. Okay. Declare the poll.
Sure. Okay. Commissioner Lisk,
Aye.
Montague,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer,
Aye.
Mayor Clark,
Aye, and
and
another
Chairperson.
commendation for a great job on the minutes.
Oh, thank you. And Chairperson Cameron.
Do I have to call the next item?
Last but not least,
Well, another comment.
as mayor, I will acknowledge Mr. Doug Canright for his many years. How many years, Preston? Have we looked it up?
Oh, I didn't take that up. Doug?
Doug,
what do you think?
can you help us?
Well, I would think
Your wife probably
I
knows.
was chair when we did the original integrated medicine. And the references by the building inspector, I did the inspections on the construction of the building too.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah.
Exactly.
You're in lots
You
of
moved from Uray County building inspector
Yeah.
to here.
Yep. Well, we appreciate your many, many years of service. I wish we had a bottle of champagne or something. So,
Or cupcakes.
Yeah,
I have to say, his one condition was that he get an invite to the Christmas party, so I hereby acknowledge that he will be invited.
I didn't even know there was one.
Absolutely.
I told you that was one of the bennies.
It's usually a whole lot.
Wow.
Actually,
We haven't done one in
your
a couple of
humor is going to be missed.
Oh, I-
greatly.
Sandy has already told Preston that I will be back at the meetings
Oh, good. Just to
because I
keep-
think
keep that
she's grown used to having the evenings.
very good.
Oh my gosh, now you're gonna be a thorn in our side?
That's exactly what she
Are
said.
you gonna open public comment? When are you gonna
Oh,
open
yeah.
public comment? I have a comment.
All right. Thank you.
Huge thanks, Doug.
Yeah, thank you.
next meeting, we'll elect a new chair, or do we need to do that tonight?
That will be next meeting. The bylaws say next meeting.
Okay. I know we put out request for letters of interest from new commission members.
There is, the one came out that I saw, came across my email, is that there was a letter of,
I don't. think-
oh, no, not of interest, but soliciting.
Oh, yeah,
a letter.
I saw that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And there's been someone attending the meetings that I believe was putting in a letter of interest, but I don't know that she has.
Okay, well, we'll find out.
She's been at the meetings for a few months now.
Well, cool.
Do we have a moment to talk about the town council thing?
Yeah. Mhm. And for those of you maybe who came in later, didn't hear this before the meeting was called to order. Michelle asked about the fact that council actually went against a planning commission recommendation at our last meeting. And actually, that was probably the first time, it's certainly the first time that I can remember.
Yeah.
Council almost always agrees with planning commission's recommendations. But Michelle was asking if there was going to be effort to address that, to let planning commission know about the discussion and how it went, and why the recommendation was overturned. And I said, absolutely. I think Preston made a great suggestion that we put on the agenda a standing item that says report from the mayor or council representative on any actions that the council took on recommendations of the planning commission. So I think we'll do that. And then specific to this, this particular item that was overturned, there was, if I can just dive right in, that there was a lot of discussion similar to what the discussion we had at planning commission about the appropriateness of the timing of the request without an actual development proposal on the table. And Russ, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was probably the primary reason.
Yeah, there was concerns that there wasn't enough definition as to exactly what was going to go in there. And the request was for mixed residential or mixed use, I believe, is what was requested. But there was not enough definition as to exactly how that was going to be set up. So
But
that's
one
what-
was approved and one wasn't.
Correct.
So they were okay with the lack of definition on one, but not on the other.
Well, primarily because of the, and filling in, if I get this wrong, but with the other one, the bigger one, partial FD and partial already zoned,
Light industrial.
light industrial, was that it made sense for that to be cleaned up. And that one actually has a condition that says the zoning change won't go through until a development proposal is presented. I forgot about that, but that one is approved, but it doesn't, if I'm, my correct person, it actually, they have to present a development proposal for the zoning to actually change, because the meets and bounds have to be defined. And,
On the outlot, the one that was approved.
yeah.
That's right. That's right.
It's
TJ.
And let me, before you dive into Thomas, another thing on the one that was turned down was that there was definite concern on council that it was too heavily weighted in terms of the applicant's proposal towards residential and didn't have enough of a mixed use emphasis, in that council really thought there's been discussion for quite a while now about how much of our industrial and commercial zone property is being turned into housing, because that's where the money is now, and losing our balance of commercially zoned property for future development. And so council was concerned that that particular piece needs to have a serious mixed use component and not just be residential.
That was not well defined. We did not make them define it well, or it wasn't presented to us as well defined. So
Thomas, what were you going to add?
I was not speaking up, John. I think you may have heard TJ. I'm thinking.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's right. Anybody else online want to say?
If I may, it's TJ, just, so the condition on the triangle piece, so the future development, was that no further development could occur until a subdivision is submitted as well. So the zoning will go into place, but no further applications would be processed until it is accompanied by a full subdivision plat. So that, and then the other, I think the big one to summarize and reiterate is that it really came down to the amount of housing versus commercial. And so the condition, or the reason that council gave for denying the track D rezoning was conditions or criteria 3 in the code that says conditions in the area affected or adjacent areas have not changed materially since the area was last zoned. And I think there was a lot of dialogue, and you guys had the same dialogue. They decided to couch it in that and then say, come back and show us that things have materially changed. And so I guess just from somewhat of an outsider's perspective, I don't think that the dialogue was different. It was just a timing thing, that they wanted to see all of it at the same time, essentially.
Thanks, TJ. That's helpful.
Yeah,
That is helpful.
and if I can add to, and this will just reiterate what John was saying, because I still see a confused look on your face.
I'm just processing it all and why the
She's
two are
often
different. I'm
confused.
like, what are they gonna have?
Easily confused.
Put a t-shirt shop in out there?
Well, when I wanted to. One of the big takeaways for me in terms of there were a variety of reasons why it was ultimately denied, but preserving the industrial zone and maintaining that balance, what John was saying, that balanced economy of residential, industrial, commercial. That wasn't what we were seeing with the other rezoning application, since that was
Further out there?
future
Because
development.
future
So
development, the industrial state.
That's track
Okay,
D's
okay,
zone line
that's making
industrial.
sense.
So, again, at an elemental level, I just wanted to emphasize that because I remember that being discussed multiple times. In the conversation. So-
Yeah.
Well, and I appreciate that, and I thought there were quite a few River Park people here to support it at our meeting, and it sounds like perhaps there wasn't as many at the council meeting. And I'm wondering if people just assume that if we've approved it, council's gonna approve it, and that did not happen. And so is there an appeal process? Can they come back to council with the same thing, or do they have to come back with something new?
Well, I believe what council asks them to do is come back with a plan.
With a
or
plan of what they
definite
want to
plan. So, yeah.
And they're suggesting it should include something other than just single family homes and something other than just housing.
Yeah.
Well,
Residential.
Mixed use, true mixed use.
Yeah.
Even if that means kind of like what I would call 21st century mixed use, where it's housing that has a component for live work. So that it's not t-shirt shops, it's creative people that want to be able to have a home, but also have a place to do whatever their printing business is, or their computer business, their photography business.
And could that be zoned but not all built at the same time? You just would set that aside as this is for this and this is for that, and we want to start working on this aspect of it.
Well, and you got to remember the zoning designation they were asking for is called mixed use residential, right? And the problem is that zone doesn't really have enough, in my view, sort of meat in the definitions that says it has to be more than just housing. So, I think council was saying, particularly in this location that was industrial, or is industrial now, some aspect of that needs to be maintained.
Make sure that we're maintaining some level of industrial in there, be it in a mixed use.
Industrial.
Give us a clue on which.
Because mixed use residential says to me that it would be maybe single family, duplexes, triplex, whatever. It's all housing, mixed use residential. So they're saying they actually want to see mixed use on that lot, meaning not just residential.
Yeah, my definition of mixed use is not just residential.
Mhm.
It's residential with a commercial industrial component.
Okay, I
Yeah.
mean, that makes
And you
sense.
find that, and you see that in the code under the uses by right and the commercial uses. It's a wide variety, I would say, without having it in front of me.
So does it come back to the planning commission?
No, it was denied.
There's no active application for that parcel for a rezone. It's their prerogative to resubmit.
Yeah, I don't believe there's an appeal process for rezoning that's been declined. It's just, as you say, just they can come back and
Meet
apply
some of
again.
the-
And the definition was more detail on what you come back with. So if somebody wants to come back with something else in a potential rezone, they know we need more detail rather than we just want to rezone.
So then they would come directly to the town council?
No.
No,
No, it's the same process.
same process. I see that they have three.
They'd be restarting the process with a new application.
And then along those same lines, one of the things, TJ, I would like to see if we could document it somehow, but I know we've had several requests coming in for use of commercial and putting houses on that as well as industrial. And when that happens, you always tell us that you have a concern about it, and I appreciate that, but is there some way you can quantify where we are with our commercial and industrial areas so that we know we have 98% left, we have 20% left, something along those lines.
Of undeveloped.
Right, because it's a concern when people keep coming to us, and I think that was part of what drove the council to reject this. Was when we want to develop commercial or industrial, what do we have left? If we agree to do this, or if we agree to a mixed use and say, well, we'll allow a little bit of residential on there, what do we have left? And that would be a good thing to know.
I think
That's
Did
a
you
great,
hear that?
real quick, that's a great thought for us to be. We can certainly work on that. TJ's smiling. I can see him on Zoom. But TJ, what are your thoughts?
I'm
on
getting giddy. Land use build outs. Yay.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think that's necessary for us to function well as a commission, to know what we've got left to deal with.
It'll be another guide, another piece.
Which
Yeah.
leads me to the next question, water study.
The water study, I'm assuming you're wondering whether it'll be ready. We're looking at after the first of the year. It's a pretty comprehensive deal, and we're working, Joanne specifically working with the consultant, but slow and steady wins the race. So conservatively looking at shortly after the first of the year for the final report to come out, be presented.
And my final question would be,
You promise.
the salary study for hiring a town planner. Not that, maybe TJ would like to leave and move to Ridgway, where housing is so abundant and available and here to hire a town planner.
So we had a budget retreat on Saturday with the town council, and that classification compensation study was presented in its entirety and with the full recommendations to the town council. And we got direction on how to proceed with the 2022 fiscal year budget related to compensation. The planner pieces are part of that, which we did discuss. And it's like number 2 on my immediate list of things to do this week to get posted.
Great, yay, thanks.
Yeah. I think when I said that on Saturday, it was like number 4, now it's number 2.
Hey, that's
Take it
great.
off the list.
Yeah.
That's all the questions I have for tonight.
For real.
I'll have some more for next time.
Sure you will.
Okay.
I move adjourn.
To adjourn, so moved.
Hey,
We're adjourned.
unanimous.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, TJ.
Thank you.
All right.
Oh, my. I'm tired.